We are live. Welcome to College Football's Peek Around the Corner with your host, Greg Pflugar. We cover everything in college football because we love everything in college football. And if you do as well, please subscribe to our ever-growing channel. Smash that like button if you like our content. Share the video with your family and friends. Share it with your significant other. Share it with your psychiatrist. Share it across your social media platforms. Welcome into the studio that sits on the corner of Keith Jackson Parkway and Kurt Gowdy Avenue. Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid to be a PATC legend. In the comment section and in the phone calls, ACC is on the precipice of expanding their conference. We are in Act 2. We are in Act 2 inside the Holy Smokes Theater, and Jim Phillips has taken center stage along with California, Stanford, and SMU. We have become believers, and we will explain why. Florida State is no longer on the stage. They're in the front row, along with Clemson, along with North Carolina, along with North Carolina State, along with Miami, along with Virginia, and along with Virginia Tech. And coming into the theater right now as we speak, is the other current ACC schools, along with Notre Dame. They're sitting in the 20th row. They're all there. Phillips, California, Stanford, SMU is on center stage. Now, there was a tweet by Brett McMurphy put out earlier today. We have made some phone calls. We have poked. We have prodded. We have some information to share with you today. we are reporting the following. It's a very complicated affair. It's a very complicated business that we're in. Let's first put up the tweet. First of all, let me thank for everybody for coming on in on a 1 o'clock Eastern time, noon Central time, lunchtime at PATC. Skull Ducky's in the house. Jared Jones, Mr. Buckeye, Tough Tony's in the house. Kay Struthers, Curtis Brown, Brandon. Thank you for coming on in, even though you have a major work commitment day. Old Donuts is in the house. Jay Go Blue, afternoon, everybody. Afternoon to you. Stephen McNeely, PATC's doubling down today. We had an episode talking about this Wednesday meeting. Episode 297. We released it this morning. Go check out a YouTube channel. It was about the playoff meeting. That's Wednesday in Dallas. Go check that out. A lot of things going on this week. Provo Cougar fans in the house. Immaculate. Mr. Hawkeye. What a Monday morning. Derek Marie. Hello, everyone. Gene Calderon. Insurance policy. R Web. Holy smokes. PATC Theater Matinee. Okay, let's get to the tweet of Brett McMurphy. Whoops, I do not have that tweet for Brett McMurphy. Let me figure out a different way here. Hold on, everybody. Hold on. Okay, let's boost this thing up here. Okay, my bad on that. Okay, hold on 1 second. Want to make sure everything is working. Okay. Okay. We got a lot to get through because what I'm about to report to you I think a lot of you are going to disagree with. But I'm it's one of these things where well, let's go through the tweet first, and then I'm going to try best explain the situation as we know it here Monday at noon Central. Brett McMurphy puts out a tweet. One reason the ACC is considering Stanford, California, and SMU is ESPN's media rights deal with ACC allows ESPN to renegotiate, i.e. reduce revenue, if the league drops below the 15 members. Sources told Action Network. With potential future departures of Florida State, Clemson, and possibly others, the ACC is considering P5 schools now as opposed to G5 schools later to maintain required membership number. Okay? So that tweet set off a lot of fireworks. Now, I'm going to explain what we know as best we can on this. I have been saying here at Peek Around the Corner that I cannot figure out a reason why Florida State, North Carolina, Clemson, and possibly others like in Miami would vote yes for expansion. Why would they flip their vote at this point? Unless it's something to do with the ACC or somehow they make it easier. The exit ramp becomes more clear for them years down the road if they find a way to be able to leave the conference. Somehow doing this deal, somehow flipping their notes no to yes makes their exit ramp more clear. We have been told, and I'm reporting to you right now, that this expansion, ACC, on the precipice of expansion, has absolutely nothing to do with either clearing the exit ramp for Florida State, for Clemson, for North Carolina State, for Miami, Florida. This expansion has nothing to do with help clearing the exit ramp, nor does it make it more difficult to exit the conference. In other words, if you remember here, peek around the corner, we've been saying for months and months and months that we were told, we reported to you that we did not believe in the dissolution theory. The conference is not going to get dissolved by having 8 votes vote to dissolve. You still do not get away from the ACC grant of rights. And we're going to get into that again. A lot of people disagree with me, but I'm telling you straight. I'm not here to make anybody feel worse than they have to or feel better than they have to. I'm telling you straight what we believe to be the case, and we were told once again today by multiple people who would know. They're not going to be able to dissolve the conference with 8 votes. And there's more to it than that. Or they're not going to be able to get away from the ACC grant of rights. So, if you see, that Magnificent Seven, they met in secret for months. And they did not go and get an 8th member to dissolve the conference. They figured out it's just not possible. Else they would have done it. It's not, okay, so this ACC expansion, Florida State, as they're sitting back here, Florida State, North Carolina, and a few others, as they're looking at this possible ACC expansion, it doesn't matter how many members the ACC has. It doesn't make it more difficult or less difficult for those individual institutions to leave the conference. So they're not getting anything in this deal that we were speculating that they might get out of this deal. They're not getting anything to help them get out of the exit ramp isn't getting more cleared, and it's not getting more cluttered by adding members. This is just a straight, Florida State's looking at this now, North Carolina State, Clemson. We're going to make a few $1 million more a year. Okay, let's do it. That's how they're looking at it. This is a straight, and the other schools in the ACC, if you look at Brett, and I'm going to get to everything as quick as I can. When Brett McMurphy says one reason the ACC is considering Stanford, Cal, SMU is ESPN's media rights deal with ACC allows ESPN to renegotiate if the league drops below 15 members. That is in case Florida State somehow, some way, knows something that other people don't. They have a way to get out of the ACC grant of rights. They have a magic, some sort of communication between themselves and the ACC that gives the Florida State the key to get out of the grant of rights. Or if Florida State reaches a settlement with the ACC to get out of the ACC grant of rights. And by the way, everybody who would know has told me the ACC doesn't even have to accept the check, doesn't have to negotiate a settlement with Florida State to get out of the grant of rights. The ACC, the grant of rights is between the conference and the school. It is not with ESPN. ESPN we negotiate the broadcasting rights with AACC if the conference dips below 15 members. That tweet, that information is about the ACC, and Brett McMurphy himself has said it in other interviews. They're stacking up, they're stocking up in case of a storm in the years ahead. Put more produce on the shelves just in case a storm happens, just in case Florida State has the ability somehow to get out of the ACC grant of rights, that they won't dip below the 15 members. And let's back up a second. Even if Florida State could get out, let's say they had some magic potion, some communication, something to show the courts very easily that they did not get enough consideration back from the ACC when they signed the extended grant of rights. Let's say they could prove some sort of fraud. They have something that no one else has seen. It would still take time for Florida State to leave the conference. And then that time, the ACC could backfill to make sure they don't drop below 15. Doing it now ensures the ACC can add on some Power 5 schools in a California, in a Stanford. So there's motivation from the ACC, from schools like Syracuse and Boston College and Wake Forest. Whoever doesn't believe they have a landing spot in the SEC and the Big Ten, there's incentive for them to expand. Some extra money, and they're well above the 15 membership. So if a Florida State find themselves out, they wouldn't dip below 15. And if other schools follow Florida State, they would have time to backfill. But in this case, at least the first couple of memberships additions, there are Power 5 schools with Stanford in California. So the ACC is doing this. There's incentive for Wake Forest, schools like that, and for Florida State. This is the important part to note. For Florida State, for Clemson, adding members does not clutter their exit ramps. Their exit ramps is based on a couple of things. One is, does Florida State or any other school have something in, some communication, something to prove fraud, something that proves that they did not receive back enough consideration when they signed the extended grant of rights, or if they can reach a settlement with the ACC. And we've been told the ACC doesn't even have to negotiate a settlement. They can say no. Now maybe Florida State can go back to the courts and say the ACC won't even negotiate with us, and the court forces the ACC to negotiate. But these are all unknowns. These are all unknowns. We do not know how it would go. Unless, of course, Florida State has something magical. Now, here's the important thing. The ACC grant of rights does not change, does not go away because of a change in composition of the conference. I've seen a lot of tweets out there. It doesn't go away. The schools that join the ACC have to sign the current grant of rights. That's why at Peek Around the Corner, we've been so down on possible ACC expansion. Who would join the conference? Who valuable enough that would join the conference to sign the grant of rights? Well, since the Pac-12 imploded, California and Stanford are desperate enough, if they want to remain in a Power 5 autonomy, Power 4 autonomy conference, that they would join the ACC and sign the grant of rights to 2036 to give their individual media owner rights to the ACC. So, there are a couple Power 5 schools that are desperate enough to do this. ESPN is going to get pro rata for Stanford and California. And it looks like SMU, we'll get to that in a second. They're going to have to sign the ACC grant of rights. And no, the ACC grant of rights do not get renegotiated. That is with the conference. And I think a whole lot of you disagree with me. I get it. But again, I was told again today by more than one person, more than one source, who would know. It's not just because you add a member doesn't rip up the ACC grant of rights. It's not how it works. ESPN can renegotiate their broadcasting rights, their broadcasting license, how much they would give to the conference if the conference ever dips below 15. And it's not going to dip below 15. It's just that the ACC wants to add, a lot of schools want to add a Stanford and California now because they are available now to stock up as an insurance policy. So if they ever have to add because of Florida State finds something magical to get out of the grant of rights, to win it in the courts, or if ACC for whatever reason has the incentive, either by the courts or by the ACC schools themselves, if the ACC ever has the incentive to actually settle with Florida State and a Clemson, that they will already have some backfield schools as Power 5 schools in Stanford and California. One thing more to note. We have poked and prodded on the pro rata here with ESPN. Hold one second. We do not know at Peek Around the Corner the limitations of this pro rata obligation that ESPN has with ACC. We don't even know if it's just about California Stanford. It could well include SMU. It might not be just Power 5 specific like it was between ESPN and the Big 12. We have not been able to, and the people that we talked to have not been able to nail this down. And we don't even know for sure how much money ESPN is obligated for the additions of a Stanford, California, and SMU. It actually might be more than $24 million per school. It might be. It might be 25. It might be 30. It might be 35. We do not know. The people we talk to do not know. So I was working with a base of $72 million, thinking it was 24 for the 3 schools. It could be more than that. So that's what I got for you. I'm going to get to your comments. I'm going to get to your phone calls. So this is an insurance policy for the ACC to bring in a Stanford in California to make sure they can add on. They're going to try to add on Power 5 schools. And if someday their membership dips below 15, or they know that it's going to dip below 15 before 2036, because Florida State, Clemson, and North Carolina have figured out a way to either beat the grant rights in the court or to settle with the ACC, that they will have at least some of that backfield. That is our report, and we're feeling really good about it, even though it goes against a lot of people's theories. That's how it is, guys and gals. This does not change. None of this, what's going on, changes. The material does not change the ACC grant of rights. It doesn't cut it down. It doesn't dissolve it. And the dissolution theory, you can just rip that up. And we were never a believer at Peek Around the Corner, because we were told by people that we count on heavily that just wasn't going to happen. You could see that the Magnificent Seven, that they took time and investigated. It's not going to happen. So adding members to the conference for Florida State, it's like, it doesn't make it more difficult for them to leave. It's already a difficult pathway for Florida State to leave. Adding members do not make it more difficult. Adding members do not make it easier, does not make it more difficult. It just puts a little bit more money in Florida State's pocket, in North Carolina pocket, in Clemson pocket in the future years up ahead here, until Florida State decides to pull the trigger. And how they defeat the grant of rights, by settlement or in the courts. Let's get to your comments. The Big 12 theater has closed. The ACC theater is open, still Act 2. A lot of people talking about Memphis. 3 days away from Nebraska, at Minnesota. Yeah, if somehow there were schools that were able to leave the ACC by a settlement, a massive settlement, or there's some magic potion in there that no one has been able to see yet, the ACC would still have time to backfill schools. So this is not a scenario where the ACC's gone, there's about 5 or 6 of our schools that looks like they have a future landing spot. They're all going to leave. Therefore, we should backfill. We should add on 6 schools right now. That's not what this is about. This is about adding on 2 Power 5 schools right now while they are available, and then possibly bring in SMU because they're willing to forsake 7 years of media rights. That's what this is about. An insurance policy, but Florida State has a long ways to go to get out of the grant of rights. The grant of rights does not change. No, ESPN does not own Florida State's media rights. That's not what this is about. And a lot of Florida State insiders are still going with this. It's just not true. Let me get to your phone calls. The lines are now open. Again, You have all the freedom to disagree with me. Tell me that I'm wrong. 763-260-133 is the number. 763-260-133 is the number. You can see it right there on the ticker. Go ahead and give us a call. And again, if you're new to the channel, please subscribe. Smash that like button. If you want your comment to get read, put down a donation. Hit that $sign donate. Help us keep the lights on. We appreciate it. Florida State isn't going anywhere. Not now. Maybe someday, but they're either going to have to reach a settlement or beat the grant of rights in the court. Whatever they do with expansion, or whatever they do not do with expansion, that does not change the ACC grant of rights. And I saw it on the message boards. I saw it on X. I've seen it all over the place. The ACC is breaking up. This Brett McMurphy's tweet means it's all happening. It's not happening. Not today, not anytime soon. But the ACC is taking advantage of California, Stanford's situation, buying an insurance policy, getting 2 Power 5 programs into the conference. And yes, we now are a believer. ACC is on the precipice. Now that we've been told clearly that adding members does not clutter the exit ramps for Florida State. Florida State is no longer a solid no.
Call from
Immaculate.
Immaculate. The floor is yours. I'm sure you probably
I can hold, Greg.
Huh?
I said, are you sure I can hold, Greg?
No, you go right ahead. I'm sure you disagree with much.
Not on everything.
Yes, but go ahead. The floor is yours.
There's aspects that, I'm certainly not going to argue or debate with you. I don't know who you're talking to or what connections you have, but you've been proven time after time to have good connections. My question to you first is this. How much do you trust these connections to, at this point, not be having you kind of tamp this down? Because if all this is true, these are extremely delicate negotiations going on behind the scenes. So at what point could all of this going public damage those negotiations if what, say, someone like me has been saying for a while is actually happening? What do you think on that?
I'm not sure if I understand the question. I was told by 2 people that I trust 100%.
Okay.
They would know that this expansion is not going to affect Florida State at all. Negatively, positively, that's not part of the equation. This is just a possibility that Florida State might make a few $1 million more, and that Florida State's future in the ACC is not connected to this actions at all. In other words, this is about ACC trying to gather more insurance, the insurance they want to buy. 2 Power 5 schools coming in the conference, just in case somewhere down the line Florida State has something that they're not aware of. That's what this is all about. And Florida State, that dissolution theory of 7 schools voting or 8 schools, it's just not part of. It's not a part of Florida State's plan because they've already looked at it, and it doesn't get them away from the grant of rights.
How does it not get them away from the grant of rights?
I am not a lawyer. I don't understand it.
I understand.
I was told that a year ago, 8 months ago, 6 months ago, 4 months ago. It doesn't dissolve them. This ACC, be it 2 schools or 3 schools, whatever, it doesn't disconnect Florida State from the ACC owning their rights. Florida State would not be able to make money anywhere else. All the money would go to whatever schools remain in the ACC.
But if
Yep.
But if the ACC doesn't exist anymore, the ACC cannot own their rights. The deal with ESPN is between the ACC and ESPN. Now, does that allow ESPN to then come after the individual schools that did this? Maybe. But if say 8 of them are in the Big 12 and the SEC, and still all of their home games are being broadcast by ESPN, what position does that actually give them legally? When it could be argued you're still controlling their rights, you're suing them for nothing. So the only problem really comes in is which ones want to go to the Big Ten, and all of a sudden their rights would no longer be touched by ESPN. But the majority of this, I don't really see how ESPN has a position against that. And if the ACC ceases to exist, then there is no entity there to control those rights. You see?
Well, I mean, ESPN does have an investment in the ACC network.
Sure. And they could real quickly move that into the Big 12 and have that investment continue.
They could, yeah, I guess. Look, all I know is, okay, look at it from this way. If it was so easy to just have 8 schools vote to dissolve the conference, and then the ACC grant of rights disappears and everybody's free, what is keeping them from doing it? That there's not 8 spots in the SEC and the Big Ten?
I would say first things first would be the worry about litigation coming from the schools that don't have a landing spot somewhere and are getting voted out of there. You're talking major damages. That's why part of my thought reason is there needs to be a cost payout to these schools for exit, so that way, they're kind of made whole in this. Because as far as I believe it, I don't believe the whole. As long as they have 15, ESPN can't renegotiate the thing. I don't believe that to be true. I think that once these schools start departing, that is getting renegotiated, period. So there is going to be a loss of value to those stuck behind. So there has to be a cash payout to help resolve that.
Well, again, I was told it is true today. In fact, I was told, but and of course it would never get. Here's the thing: it's never going to drop below 15, anyways. Because schools just can't get up and leave. They have to put a note. Let's just say schools are somehow able to leave, right? Before they would actually leave, the ACC would be able to backfill. So they're not going below 15. This is an insurance. This is ACC saying, if we have to backfill at some point, let's just do it now and make sure we get a couple more Power 5 programs into the conference. That's what.
But sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. But just on that point, I agree with you 100%. Like, that is absolutely Stanford and Cal with their P5 status. People might look and go, but it's Stanford and Cal. Yeah, but for whatever reason, the P5 status matters. And so there is more perceived value there.
It does matter because of playoff distribution money. But go ahead.
Yeah, and the limited field of opportunities they have to get those schools to need something by next year. Otherwise, they're going to lose out on getting these because they're going to have to find some other solution, whether Stanford finally agrees to the BCAA with the Big Ten or whatever.
Yeah.
But and I agree. Like, there is some point to, hey, as long as we have 15 schools, we're providing the same amount of content to ESPN. And so the goal is to make sure and keep that, because that's an obvious call out for ESPN. But I think it could still be argued that if the value of that content differs considerably, that ESPN can say it's still not worth us maintaining this, and consideration on this contract has been lost. So I would say, like, the whole point of there being, this would have to be like a broad, wide-ranging agreement with a payout to get out. And yes, another part of it is they have to figure out schools to come in and replace these schools. Otherwise, those being left behind are going to say, we have zero chance to not have to renegotiate this contract. But even if they do get 15 and keep it up, there's still going to be a chance ESPN comes back at them. But I just think that negating the possibility of a dissolution vote, I just have a hard time believing that being the case, and allowing in these schools right now without having an agreement in place for exit at some point in time means that dissolution vote threat is lessened, because I don't see Stanford, Cal, or SMU ever being part of a threat to dissolve the conference. So that raises the threshold.
And that's why. So that's why I believe the following is going to happen, Immaculate. After having the conversations I've had this morning, I think they are going to expand, and I think it's going to become obvious to everybody that the dissolution theory just isn't practical. It just isn't possible. I think that's going to I think the nail in the coffin will be pounded home by the additions of California, Stanford, and SMU. And if you go back, there's some public comments. I don't know if there was the names attached to the public comments, but after it was found out about the Magnificent Seven and everything, there was some comments reported by major college football reporters. Representatives of those 7 schools came out and said, look, we looked at it and we couldn't find a way to get it done. And they were talking about the dissolution. Mm-hmm. And they just, I think because there's some, and I'm not a lawyer, I'm not very smart, but there's something there that's keeping them from, we just can't do it. It doesn't break us away from the grant of rights. We have to actually either get that settlement with the conference or win it in the courts. I can't explain it to you, though.
We'll have to see how that goes. I have a hard time understanding and believing that if the ACC ceases to exist, that the schools are still.
I'm not sure they
with the conference, and the conference has the agreement with the networks. There's no agreement between the networks and the schools.
But I mean, why would the ACC? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. But I've just been told over and over and over again, and I think we're going to get our answer here soon, Immaculate.
I agree with you on that one, 100%. I think whoever is right or wrong in this, this thing is starting to come down, and the fact that, and I'll end with this, and then I'm sure you're going to have a lot of people want to talk about this. The part I want to end in that I see is the coincidence that this ACC vote is looking to be Wednesday, and the college football, management is meeting on Wednesday on the same day. Sure is interesting.
It looks like we got an ACC president call for tonight, Monday night. According to Ross Dellinger, according to the chat room here.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So they moved it forward.
Yeah, I think Ross Dellinger just tweeted. Let me find it here and I'll post it. Yeah, I think things are moving in the direction of expansion, and that's what we were told. And I'm gonna pop this up here.
Nope. Yeah, I was saying that I think McMurphy pretty much opened up the dam gates, and then now all the other media folks, they have to start saying more than just the previously approved cover story.
Yeah.
So you're going to start seeing stuff like this coming out where they're going to start saying.
I'm going to read you what Dellinger just said here. ACC presidents are scheduled to meet on a call Monday evening to discuss and potentially take action on expanding to add California, Stanford, and SMU. 3 weeks of deep exploration into a 3-team expansion plan appears to be at its end, with a determination coming from the meeting or soon afterward. The league needs support of 12 of the 15 members. over the last several days, momentum has been building in support of expansion. I'm going to see if there's anything new here. The ACC stands to bring in $72 million. Again, I could not get that confirmed. It might be more than that. Yeah, there's nothing new here, but I think we're going in that direction.
And the 72 they get by 24 times 3. That's
Yeah.
Pro rata times 3 for SMU, Stanford, and Cal. And then there's supposedly some money that gets taken out of that for travel and cost expenses and whatnot. So
yeah,
that's where they come up with that number. But, yeah, I don't know, buddy. I don't know.
I think
appreciate you and all of your connections and
I think it's happening.
I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around the dissolution thing.
I think it's happening.
We'll see how it goes.
I think it's happening, and once it does, it doesn't really change Florida State's operandi. Let's put it that way. It doesn't, because I don't think Florida State is working on any dissolution theory. They're working on something else. So, all righty, sir. Thanks for the phone call.
Yeah. No problem, buddy.
Appreciate it. Great call by Immaculate. Yeah, so, and that's why we went on live here at noon. We called the show ACC's on the precipice of expanding. Florida State, North Carolina, these schools, I think they're just looking at it as, okay, we make a few $1 million more, and they're still focused on getting out of the conference. By settlement or by some magical potion that they figure out how to win the grant of rights. None of this. People are going to learn a couple things real fast here. When this expansion goes down, a couple things are going to happen. One is, I think people have to put the dissolution theory and push it aside. It's not part of the story. I don't think it ever was. Number one, at least that's what we were told by serious people over and over and over again. So I think that's going to have to get pushed to the side, because you're not adding 3 members if any of these schools believe, any of the Magnificent Seven believe that dissolution theory is a serious threat to impel the ACC. Number one, we got to push that aside.
Call from
Attorney Dave.
I didn't get the name. Who is this?
Attorney Dave.
Attorney Dave, hold on one second. I also, when this goes down, and now we believe it is going down from our conversations, the ACC grant of rights isn't changing. It's going to go to 2036. It doesn't make it easier for Florida State to leave. Nothing has to be renegotiated. Nothing materially changes. Now, Attorney Dave, I think he's going to back me up on this. He's a lot smarter than I am. He can fill in these huge gaps that I leave wide open because I don't know what I'm talking about. Attorney Dave, the floor is yours. Go ahead.
You're a smart guy. I was just saying, you're a smart guy. It's not true that you bring more to the table than I do. That's for sure.
All righty. What do you think about what's going on here?
I was just going to really point out that there's this clause within that grant of rights, at least the one that kind of floated around, that says that no ACC school that signs those grant of rights can violate, conflict with anything in the agreement that results in a breach or default or to cause termination of any contract, license, permit, or other agreement with the ACC. And so, I've talked to a few people about this as well, and that clause mixed with what's within the grant of rights would make it that these schools can't dissolve the conference without breaching this contract, the grant of rights in and of itself. And so, and then they're left in the same place they would be left anyway, which would be a lot of litigation if they were to try to dissolve the conference, which would result in them not getting into the Big Ten or the SEC because no one's going to want to touch them through that process. It would be a really, really messy process. And so I think that the whole dissolution discussion, the reason it's there is because the bylaws are silent on dissolution and what would be required for dissolution.
Yeah.
So a lot of people revert to, I guess, North Carolina law is that you just need a majority to dissolve of your, of your members. And so, but I mean, it would be, I mean, the dissolution would, I think, leave them effectively in the same place that they would be otherwise, which would be stuck without a conference. So, because there would be the same issues that would happen, with the tortious interference, and with a lot of the other things that if a conference like the Big Ten or were to even communicate with them and try to induce them to breach this contract, they would, I mean, Fox would be a lot of liability. So I think that's what is potentially at play here. This grant of rights, there's a reason why that Texas and Oklahoma couldn't do anything about it. And there's a reason why nobody has acted upon it and to do much other than, what we've seen Florida State do, because it's a document that they thought through. And so if something's going to come, I don't think it's going to be some big legal win in the courts. I think it's going to have to be, as you've said over and over and over again, that it's going to be a situation which they're going to have to buy their way out of it, and that the ACC is going to have to accept it and believe that it's in their best interest to accept it at that time.
Yeah. Yep. All righty, man. You said it a lot better than I could ever say it.
We appreciate all your work on it.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting. I think what'll be most interesting to see is whether this is a unanimous vote or whether Florida State and Clemson have the balls to.
It'll come out as unanimous.
I agree. I think that's the thing is after all this, it'll end up is they'll just end up voting unanimous on this, because that's what they do. Yeah.
All righty. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Bye.
Call again, sir. So we're looking at a 18-member ACC conference, 17 in the football portion of the conference. We're looking at a 18-team Big Ten conference, a 17-team ACC conference, a 16-team Big 12 conference, a 16-team SEC conference, 4 Power 4, 4 Autonomy 4 conferences, Oregon State, Washington State having to make a decision, Mountain West or the AAC, and that's what we're looking at. I did not think the ACC would expand until this morning, until I've had a couple phone calls that says it's on its way. There's really nothing negative for Florida State to just vote on this and go ahead and do it. It does not clutter the exit ramp. There is no negotiations to clear the exit ramp. It's just a little bit extra payday for everybody, and it doesn't change Florida State's strategy. It doesn't change the ACC grant of rights. The ACC owns the grant of rights, not ESPN. All those truisms still remain true today. The difference is ACC's actually expanding, bringing in $70-some million. It could be more. And that's going to be distributed. SMU, we're close. We're close. You're very close to climbing the wall to get into an Autonomy 4 conference. And you've got a lot of support, people backing up the Brink trucks to pay for SMU's, bringing in, I don't know how much they're bringing in. How much are they bringing in? You got 7 years of media money that you're saying no. Now, you weren't making much anyways in the ACC. So you gotta, how much were they making? $7 million a year, $50 million. They just have to replace $50 million of revenue. SMU, you're about this close from climbing over the wall to get to a Power 4. And what does that do for the ACC schools? Does it help them recruit in Dallas, Texas?
Call from
JD.
JB, the floor is yours. What's going on, sir?
How you doing, sir?
Doing good.
Well, I'm listening to your show a little bit ago, and there's not a lot that we disagree on, but there is I think there's, well, let me back up here.
Yeah.
Let's start off with this, okay? Can we agree that the GOR, the ACC GOR, serves the ACC ESPN contract? That is the sole purpose of it. It's not a standalone agreement. It is an agreement that serves that specific contract.
Yes, there is part of that. Yes, I would agree with that. Yep.
Okay. So, and I agree with you, adding teams doesn't necessarily change that.
Yeah.
What's going on, what's been discussed, and again, it's theory, but it's discussed against FSU, FSU fans and insiders, is that the composition clause allows ESPN to renegotiate the deal if 2 or more teams leave. Now, I know that was also depending upon having 15 members, but we don't know because it's in the ESPN contract, which nobody gets to see. Mm-hmm. But everybody has acknowledged, and even the story this morning acknowledged, that the composition clause is real. It's there. ESPN has the ability to renegotiate these particular terms and potential addition of conference members and so on. Now, the nuclear option that's been rumored that FSU and Clemson have is if they announce in tandem that they're leaving, okay, mm-hmm. the ESPN then can use the composition clause to completely renegotiate the entire contract, which means it would require a new GOR. Now, do you think ESPN is going to keep the same contract in place if the 2 teams that provide over half of the value of the entire contract? They're not going to.
Yeah, but
they're going to say no. We're renegotiating this.
But the announcement of an announcement of Florida State and Clemson leaving doesn't do anything other than it's an announcement that they're leaving. What they have to do
it triggers the clause. It gives ESPN the ability to renegotiate the deal under that clause.
I would have to see. Go ahead.
That's been rumored to be in the contract. I don't know. Okay.
Yeah.
That's just been. In other words, if 2 or more teams leave, that gives ESPN the ability to use the composition clause to renegotiate the contract.
And that gets back to my point. Announcing you're leaving and actually leaving, as you know, are completely 2 different things. And to be able to leave, for a Clemson and a Florida State to be able to leave, for a Big Ten or SEC to take you, they're going to have to get out of the grant of rights. I think people, again, I understand people disagree with me. I think people are going to find out here pretty quick, though. The reality, JD.
I'm going to say within FSU insiders, they've never been more confident. They're just not talking.
Yeah.
So they've closed up. But folks that thought that there's 0 chance that we would get out anytime in the next 7 or 8 years,
even they've come around even recently and said, "Oh no, we're leaving. We're leaving." It's just,
I agree
there's
with
a lot. There's a lot of pieces in the works.
I agree with you on that. What I would go ahead.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I agree. There are serious people who believe that Florida State is on their way out of the conference, and it could be 7-8 years from now or less. But just let me finish this. Those same serious people are also saying that what's happening today, what's happening tonight with the ACC presidents will have zero effect, positive or negative, on the future of Florida State being able to get out of the ACC grant of rights. It isn't going to affect them at all. And that's why they're probably willing to say yes to get a few $1 million more a year, because it's not going to change their projection to get out of the conference. I'll let you have the last word.
No, and I don't know that the composition of the conference necessarily affects FSU getting out. And I agree with you there. I think they needed to do that because if they drop down, if 2 to 3 teams leave and they drop down, they're really in danger of losing automatic qualifier. I mean, right now the SEC and Big Ten, they want to get rid of the automatic qualifiers for future playoffs anyway. So a lot of the negotiations going on in a few days. Will determine, like you said, and I saw your post earlier this morning, and I completely agree with everything that you're saying. Like I said, I don't think this whole composition clause exit is ever going to get. In other words, we're never going to get an answer on that because I don't think it's ever going to come to that. I think there's going to be a negotiated exit. I think there's a lot going on behind the scenes, and here's something else. Don't be shocked if ESPN's pulling the strings behind the scenes too. I mean, the networks are moving pieces around, and they're having to be very careful how they extend their influence, and they can't be seen as extending influence. Now, does that mean that FSU and Clemson's exit is a grand conspiracy by ESPN and Fox? Not necessarily. The schools want to leave because they want to be in a more competitive situation. But to suggest that they're doing this completely against the wishes of ESPN or Fox or any of the other, oh no, don't be kidding yourself. I mean, they want the future of college football to not be a $2 billion industry. They want it to be a $10 billion industry. And different from the NFL owns its own entity, and the networks are broadcast partners. In the new world of college football, the networks own college football. It's a much different animal. And that's where we're heading, and you're just seeing the reconfiguration and consolidation. You want to deal with 10, I don't know how many FBS conferences there are. There's quite a few. Do you want to deal with a dozen, or do you want to deal with 4 or 5? You have a lot more control if you only have 4 or 5. And you have a lot more control over matchups. But the ACC, GOR, it is sticky, it is messy, and it's going to be – I'm not going to say it's not going to cost a lot of money to get out, because it is. It just is. Yeah. This whole process is just trying to reduce that buyout number, and that's it.
All righty. So, I do agree with you on that. Thank you, JD. I appreciate the call, man.
Hey, thank you.
Please call us again, because this story is not going away. Florida State getting out of the ACC is not going away. So thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
I'll tell you one last thing, if you give me this.
Yeah.
There are people that were hesitant to say we would be out before 2030.
Yeah.
Most everybody believes it'll happen during the season or right after the season that we announce.
All righty.
So I don't know. I'm not one of those people that can tell you, heads or tails.
Got it.
So, anyway.
All right. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
All right.
All righty. Jesse Wilson, thanks for your super chat. I appreciate your generosity to the channel once again. Go Huskies. Jesse Wilson from the state of Alabama, but he's a Washington Husky fan.
Call from
Moen.
Moen. Can you hold 1 second, Moen?
Yeah, I'll hold for you.
It's just going to be a second. In relation to the composition clause, what we ever told at Peek Around the Corner, we've been told this for a long time. Yes, ESPN can renegotiate with ACC if it gets below 15 members. That's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. The ACC would have time to backfill. This whole thing with Stanford and California is to be able to backfill with 2 Power 5 members now that they're available. The other part to the composition clause is the ACC cannot renegotiate with ESPN unless they added Notre Dame. We were told, we talked about this in 2022, that the only part of the composition clause that would favor the ACC if Notre Dame was the school added to the conference. Hopefully I didn't mess things up, getting the waters even muddier. But go ahead, Monavision. What's going on? What's happening?
Well, I think the ACC can rest assured that Notre Dame will not be joining their conference.
Yeah.
The whole Stanford, California, SMU play was specifically designed for them to not have to join the conference. And I'll be interesting to see how the vote rolls out here, because somebody is going to have to flip yes. And
They're
somebody
flipping.
is basically agreeing that, yeah.
Did you catch the start of my show?
Yeah, I heard the news that they're flipping, but
okay. Did you catch the start of my show?
I did not catch that part of your show.
Okay. I'll just say I'll give you a quick synopsis. We were told this morning by 2 people that regardless, Florida State exit ramp is not going to get cluttered nor cleared by the actions of what's going to happen today. So there is no dissolution theory. It doesn't hurt that there's more members. Florida State this changes nothing about what Florida State future plans are. It has no effect at all. And that the other ACC schools are looking for an insurance policy just with an addition of 2 Power 5 programs, just in case Florida State finds a way, or in future years there's some sort of settlement that benefits the ACC schools that do not have a landing spot in the SEC, the Big Ten. The floor is yours, Monavision.
Then again, I want to see who's going to vote yes for this.
I think all of them.
I can't. You think it's going to be a unanimous yes?
Yeah. I think we're at that point.
If that's the case, you're going to have boosters pulling funds from Florida State, Clemson, North Carolina State, Virginia Tech, and Virginia. So you better hope that whatever money you're making, in addition, is going to cover what you're going to be losing from your athletic boosters.
Well, hopefully Florida State will communicate to their donors and say, look, this does not hinder our ability to leave the conference. It had no effect on it. Hopefully they get out in front of it and communicate that to their board of trustees, whatever they have to do, that they communicate that, because that's what we were told pretty strongly today by 2 different people. This has nothing to do with the exit ramp of Florida State.
Yeah, that might be, but they're still going to have to, after all the saber rattling they've done to their fans and their
and the optics of Notre Dame calling the shots.
Yeah. This has basically become the all Notre Dame conference. Whatever Notre Dame says goes, and you've got Notre Dame plus a bunch of bootlickers. So, I mean, I know it's a strong way to put it that way, but
Yeah.
name any other conference where one school gets to dictate. Name any conference where a partial member gets to dictate the terms, let alone a full member.
Yeah.
I mean, it's unbelievable. And I think if they're going the route where they're going to add SMU, and SMU gets to basically buy their way into a conference, I think that it's more than fair for these teams to be able to buy their way out of the conference. So,
and maybe they use that. Maybe they use that in the courts. You know, maybe Florida State wants that sort of happen, right? Somebody can buy in. That's you got to give us the ability to buy out. Maybe that's what Florida State wants. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a possibility too.
Yeah.
Because I mean, prostitution has to swing both ways. There can be prostitutes, but there's got to be Johns, and in that case, SMU's being the prostitute. So, unbelievable. If the ACC does this, it's unbelievable. If Cal agrees to this, it's unbelievable. I'm still not 100% sure it's going to happen, Greg. I know what your sources are telling you. I just can't imagine how this works out, where you're adding two schools all the way across the country, adding travel costs, and doing all this for the other members just to keep Notre Dame happy. At some point, somebody's got to take a stand and say, you know what, we need to look out for the ACC and stop looking out for Notre Dame.
You bring up a lot of good points, sir.
Name a more iconic duo than the ACC in making rash, stupid decisions. Because that tends to be their brand as of now. Signing grant of rights that last for 16 or 20 years, and agreeing to ACC network deals and forcing deals with Raycom that the son of the former commissioner was a big part of. And the ACC just can't get out of its way with the making terrible decisions if they go this route. But that's just my opinion. I could be wrong. I'm not, but I could be. And I'll leave you with that, Greg.
Thank you, Motivision. I appreciate your phone call, and I understand everything you're saying. It's going to be very interesting. It's going to be very interesting. And I think it's all coming down tonight. Fake Tom Osborne, I apologize, sir, for missing your super chat. SMU embarrassing themselves, will never be taken seriously again. They're like the low-level character that buys all the weapons in a video game. Thank you so much for your super chat, for your continued generosity to the channel. I appreciate it. Look, I don't think SMU cares. I mean, they're about to climb over the wall. They're going to get themselves in a position for 2030, whatever the ACC looks like. They're going to renew. They're going to have to look. If someone's willing to pay the freight at SMU, I don't. The athletic department, the leadership, the president, I would go for it. I would go for it. If someone is willing to give enough money for the athletic department to keep working through these next 7 years, now it's going to be a difficult task. SMU is not like, it's not like they're dominating the AAC right now, because they're not. They're not winning conference championships because they're not. Now they're going to go to the ACC with no media money. Now they are going to get some revenue with regards to NCAA tourney credits and possible playoff distribution money, possibly. I don't think they're going to get $0 from ACC payouts. But they're going to, it's going to be very, very difficult for SMU. But again, to get over the wall, to climb over the wall, this is a long-term play for SMU. And I don't blame them. I don't blame them for throwing their hat into the ring. If they've got the boosters to pay for it, I don't think they care that they're being so-called embarrassed. This is a big deal. This is a big deal for that university. if they can get it done. Yeah, lots of great calls. Lots of great calls. And I think this story is about to come to some conclusion tonight. And what does that mean for Washington State and Oregon State? What does that mean for the AAC? Do they backfill a school if they lose SMU? I think they would. So we can talk about that on tomorrow's show. Tomorrow we're going to be talking about week 1 games. We're going to do a live show tonight and talk about week 1 games. It looks like if we do an emergency live show, we'll be focusing on the ACC actions of expansion. We're going to close it down. We're doing a smaller show this afternoon. It'll probably come up on later tonight. But I wanted to make sure we hit on Brett McMurphy's tweet. I wanted to clarify what we believe is going down. ACC is on the precipice of expansion. And we have speculated, I have speculated, that Florida State and others, to get their votes to flip, they must be getting some sort of assurances that the exit ramps get somehow cleared out just a little bit. That is not happening. What is going on today, what is going to happen tonight, has absolutely nothing to do with Florida State, North Carolina State, Virginia Tech, Miami, Florida, Clemson, whoever. The exit ramps do not get changed. It's a big hurdle that they have in front of them, but more clutter does not get added to their exit ramps. The only thing that gets added to Florida State is a couple $1 million more in their bank account per year. So that's how they're looking at it. And it doesn't change the ACC grant of rights. I saw a ton of messages. I saw a bunch of stuff on X. This does not change the ACC grant of rights whatsoever. It's still a big hurdle for Florida State and others to overcome. They have to win in the court, or they have to get ACC to settle. That benefits the ACC schools that won't be landing in the SEC of the big time anytime in the future. So thanks for coming on board. Thanks for joining us here in this live show, emergency live show. We're probably going to be popping up tonight, so keep your head on a swivel. Very important times as we head into week 1. And all through the week, we're going to be talking about week 1 games. I'm all fired up, and I know you are as well. So until next time, from all of us at PATC, to all of you, please, you all take great care of each other. Thank you so very much.